Assalamualaikum and a very good evening to everyone. First and foremost, thank you for joining our live webinar session for today. I am Sarah from CDAE and I'm absolutely thrilled to be your MC for today's enlightening section. Before we get started, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all of our distinguished guests and educators who are joining us today. Throughout the webinar session, the aim is to share insight on student workload measurement concepts and finding based on the CALOHEA project involving universities in ASEAN. These insights will shed light on the importance for installing the culture of student workload measurement to inform better strategies to ensure for more comparable attainment of learning outcomes in the region. Without wasting more time, I would like to introduce two of our honorable speakers for today, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Saiful Bahri Yusof, Director of Center for the Development of Academic Excellence, CDAE, and Associate Professor at the Department at Medical Education, School of Medical Sciences, University Science Malaysia. Our second speaker will be TS Dr. Mastura Azmi. She is the Deputy Director of Academic Quality Center in University Science Malaysia and also a Senior Lecturer from School of Civil Engineering, USM. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not keep you waiting any longer and get started with our session for today on insight on CALOHEA Project on Student Workload Measurements Concept and Findings. Without further delay, please welcome Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Saiful Bahri Yusof. Doctor, are you here?
Yes. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, very clear, Doctor.
All right. So we shall start now.
Okay, sure, Doctor.
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon, everyone. All right. All right. So can you see my PowerPoint slide right now?
Yes, Doctor.
Is it in the PowerPoint slide mode or still on? All right. So okay. So all right. So okay. So welcome everyone to this webinar. So I'm Saiful from CDAE and PPSP. I'm going to share an insight about student workload based on the CALOHEA project. Maybe before we proceed further, maybe I would like just to introduce you what is CALOHEA. All right, so basically CALOHEA is a project under the Erasmus grant, and then it's about measuring and comparing achievements of learning outcomes in higher education in Asia. So basically it's about CALOHEA is from that acronym, actually the long name to acronym. And then the main objective of CALOHEA is basically for the internalizations of higher education institutions by improving the recognitions of higher education degrees. So something that we have been working before COVID, and we are finishing it maybe in a few months, in the next few months, I think. All right, so just to introduce you who involved in this project. So basically is basically comprises of Southeast Asia countries, and together with the ASEAN University Network and the partners from the Europe, basically from Belgium, France, Italy, Portugal, and the Netherlands. So these are basically the members, and as a whole, we have 31 institutions across the ASEAN, and then 5 countries from the European. I think this is something that we are sharing for the past 3 years. And then the main 3 subject area is civil engineering, medicine, and teacher education, and myself from the medicine, and Dr. Masura from the civil engineering, but unfortunately we cannot get someone from the teacher educations because of maybe availability of the members. All right. So and basically, these are the process that we went through for the past 2.5 years, basically. So basically, there are 3 main important things that we are looking at. Basically, looking at the framework across ASEAN, student workload, and authentic assessment. And today, we are going to basically sharing about the student workload in terms of the concept and the measurements and what we have learned so far and how that will influence the way we are doing at this moment. And I think somewhere in next month, we are going to talk about authentic assessment and later on the competency framework. And at the end, we are talking about the whole general lesson that we learned from the CALOHEA so that we can share the practices. Now, this webinar actually have two scopes because we only have 1 hour, and we are going to discuss about the concept workload based on the CALOHEA project, as a basis for our discussion, and later on we will discuss about some reflection on what the importance of cultivating student workload measurements in higher education. So this is something that we are going to discuss, and hopefully that's something that can give you insight. How can we do better? All right, now let's focus on the student workload concept. So I'm going to cover majority on most of the student workload concept, and Dr. Masura will add on a certain aspect related to the reflections of the important. Right, so in terms of recognition, so because we are talking about improving recognition of higher education degrees, so we need to know what is recognition. There are multiple lenses that we can see recognition in a way to promote internalizations of our academic program. So if you're looking at the teacher side, so what will be recognized? So basically from the teacher side, it's about the content, isn't it? So there is a very common to us because we are providing the content. But from the output side, from the perspective of the students, is about the learning outcomes. It means that what the student should be able to demonstrate to us at the end of courses of the program. So this is something that what we recognize. But on the other hand, how much to be recognized? This is somewhere that related to the student workload. But if you're looking at the input side, from the teacher perspective, it's about contact hours, because the workload is about how much time that we spend our session with the students in terms of the contact hours, contact time. And then from the student perspective, it's about how much the loads they need to spend in order to achieve or attain the learning outcome. So I think there's something that two different perspectives, whereby the students looking at the whole, but from the perspective of the teachers, which is we are the lecturers, is basically looking at one side, which is contact hours. Now, so based on this, basically, if we are talking and from the teacher perspective, teacher lens, so basically this is the contact hours. It means that the workload is just a surface of the iceberg, isn't it? So it's something that we always do. So, but from the student perspective, it's much more than contact hours. So basically, it's how much they have spent out of the official classroom hours with teachers to ensure that they have grasped all the learning outcomes that they need to cover for the either for the whole course or for the whole program. So basically, it's a much more about student workload. It's not only the contact hours that we see the student, but it's beyond that, because the student need more time, more preparation time, more self-studies time to prepare them and then to ensure that they have gained what is supposed to gain at the end of course, a lesson, or even the program. And this is very important when it comes to the transparency, because if we are making a kind of similarity, it's a kind of currency. The student world is a kind of currency that we are trading with other courses. So in order to make things transparent enough for us to make a trading with other courses, we need to ensure that the student workload is in a similar page or similar, I would say, a similar currency, or maybe something that we are comparable and compatible, so that recognition will be there. Because when we are transparent with what the students have attained based on certain amount of time they have spent to learn, right? So this is where we can trade off with any other higher education program. So that, for example, let's say the credit transfer, whatsoever, that will be mutually recognized, compatible, and comparable so that we can transfer the credit. So this is where the recognition. Whenever recognition is settled, so there is, I think, that will facilitate the internalizations of higher education degree. So basically, this kind of perspective that we were looking when we are doing this project. And when we deep dive further into the student workload, so basically in simpler word or simpler term, it's about how much time spent by a student to achieve the learning outcome. So basically it's about the time. And then this is where we are talking just now, is a contact hours and independent hours. And we know that the contact hours is basically with teachers, and the independent work is without teachers. It means that the students spend their own free time to learn and to ensure that they have achieved what it's supposed to achieve at the end of course, based on whatever learning outcome being documented or maybe being spelled out in the program. And then all this, when it comes to the student workload, it should cover both. All right. So this is where, usually if we are just putting our lens in the only from the teacher side, so definitely the quite significant portion will be missed from the student workload measurement. Right. So this is an example just on how can we visualize the teacher-centered way of looking at student workload. Is basically the contact hours. So looking at this example, we can clearly see that it's only 70 hours per week. Looks like it's very low kind of a workload, isn't it? But if you are looking at the other dimension, which is the student dimensions on how they see student workload, is much more actually. All right. So if you are looking at this one, contact hours 17 just now, and then we add another 26 hours because of the independent works that the student have to do in order to to ensure they have grasped whatever the lessons that has been learned during the contact hours. So basically, if you are looking both, is almost, it's more than double, all right? So it's more than double. They need to do more, actually, especially those who are that in the novice level. I mean that at the beginning, they might need additional or maybe extra times for them to learn in order, to achieve the learning outcomes. I think this is something that teacher side, but when it comes to the student side, is much more, right? And if we can put it in the diagram, whatever we have understood from the project is student workload can be visualized in this sense, right? So the thing that we see is the contact hours. So how much hours spent with the teachers for them to attain the learning outcome. So basically, this is very clear. It is something that we always do. And if you're looking at the conventional way of calculating the credit hours, is basically based on the contact hours, right? But if you're looking as a whole, putting the student perspective into the student workload is basically much more because the hours spent independently for them to attain the learning outcomes without teacher, right? So there's a much more assignment. They have to do assignment on their own. They have to prepare something, reading text, course assessment, whatsoever. And then unsupervised work is something like the field works, laboratory, practical attachment, and so on and so forth. I think there's a kind of the concept that I know really make us think that now it's time for us to see whether we are doing justice to the students, especially to our students, all right? So they need more time. And in terms of comparability and compatibility, looking at this concept of student workload that we have learned from the CALOHEA project, let's say it's IPTA and IPTB. I mean that there are two different institutions trying to see the comparability and the compatibility between the program and courses between the two institutions. For example, let's say the course A, if you are looking at this one, definitely, even though the contact hours is 5 hours and they only need 2 hours of independent work, so still, at the end of the day, the workload is 7. So basically, it's comparable and compatible. But if you're looking at the example of course D, let's say, if you're looking just at the contact hours, looks like it's compatible, just a bit different from 1 hour. But if you are looking at how much the independent works that has been spent by the students to attain the learning outcomes is basically less. So basically it's a 10 to 6, looks like it's not comparable and not compatible. So if we want to recognize the courses based on this concept, it seems that the cost day should be something that we need to relook, as compared to the cost A, and so on and so forth. So this concept really is useful when we are looking at the comparability and compatibility of certain degree with our current degree. So that the transfer, the credit transfer, the mobility and internalizations can be done easily. Right? And just to go beyond the CALOHEA project, so this is something that I would like to just add on to our discussion. We have learned that looking at the CALOHEA is about contact hours independent work. And if you're looking at the model that has been published there and being reported by OECD, it's basically the degree of learning, right? So it's about the degree of the extent of the student learn, right? So basically, depending on a few factors and very much related to the concept that has been introduced by CALOHEA. One is about the time students spend learning depends on their opportunity to learning. That's why time is very important here, because we need to provide adequate learning opportunity for them to grow as individuals who becoming someone in the field, all right? And then the time students spend learning depends on the level of perseverance. It means that the time the student engage in learning. Because if, let's say, we give 60 minutes, how much time that's really engage them in the learning. So this is something, is very variables between classroom to classrooms, instructor to instructor, teacher to teachers, depending and on the student as well. But we need to consider as well something that depends on their aptitude. It means that the natural learning talent or learning ability of the student, the IQ, how fast they can grasp the concept and so on and so on. This is something that's innate ability, which is a bit difficult to control, but we need to consider into this kind of learning attainment, right? And the quality of the instruction. It means that the time needed for students to learn depends on how well teachers deliver the lesson, right? So the way we deliver the lesson have implications on the time needed for students to learn. So I think if you use effective instructional design or lessons, so it means that the student require less time. But if, let's say, something is very complicated, the teachers are giving us very difficult instructional design to the students, so the student require more time. So that's why the degree of learning depending on this as well. And last but not least is the time needed for the student learn depends on how well the students can make sense of the lessons. That's why designing our lesson is very important, because it has some rules to facilitate the student learnings. But as a whole, the key idea is time is a resource for student learning, right? So this is a very important key message from this model that has been, even though it looks like a difficult formula, but actually time is resource for student learning. That's related back with the student workload just now. And the other model is SLT model, student learning time model. This is something that we use to formulation especially. So if you're looking at this one, we have the official contact time, the guided learning time, self-study time, and assessment time. All these are under category if we put in the concept of CALOHEA just now, is about the contact hours and independent work. And if you're looking at this time allocated for learning and time to engage is related to the formula just now, the current model just now, and this effort independent study also representing whatever the formula has been mentioned, right? So, and at the end of the day, the total workload is the sum of all these activities that the student spend the time to achieve or to attain the learning outcome. So basically, if you're looking at the CALOHEA concept, whatever has been established and looking at the current practice in our local context, more or less is gearing toward the same concept, the contact hours and independent work, right? And if you are summarized in terms of the constructive alignment, there's something that I just put it in a diagram so that we can see the connection between the every construct, the program learning outcome, which is the competency, the teaching learning activity, which is the learning with teacher and learning without the teacher, representing contact hours, independent hours, and the preparation time for the assessment, revision time, study time, for the exam, and then assessment time, which is the contact hours when they are engaged with the exam with the physical presence. And all this basically, if you relate to our context right now, is about credit unit. All right, it's about credit unit. So we must ensure that whatever the credit unit that we calculated, representing the whole student workload, so that the workload is appropriate for students to grow as a person in the field, so that all the competency that we expect from the student to attain, they will attain at the end of the courses or program. All right, so this is something that we can connect with all this concept that has been, that has been echoed by the project. And if you're looking at the competency curve, all right, so I'm trying to connect with the competency curve so that we can just put into context how that's important. So basically, let's say we are growing someone from the incompetent to novice, competent, advanced, and mastery. And definitely there will be a two side of coin, which is time required for student, to learn something. And time is something that is very important because it's a key resources that offer opportunity to learning. So time, opportunity that we offer that represent the workload, and all this basically important for them to attain the competency, which is the learning outcome. So I think this is something that we need to think carefully when we design our program, because time is very important as it is a key for the student to learn and to grow, and that the key will unlock their potential, which can be seen when they attain the learning outcomes. Right. So there's something that how that's connect. And just sharing, how do we measure when we run the CALOHEA project? Actually, we were provided with the 4 workload measurement tools. So all this measurement tool has been carried out by all the institutions involved in this research. We use a desk estimation. Desk estimation is based on the document. I mean that what you have documented, what has been approved, all right, by the authorities in the institution. In our case, it's Senate, all right? So based on that, the official document, we calculate how many is contact hours and how many independent hours or independent works. And looking at, the results, actually based on desk estimations, in Malaysian context, all right, as well as other contexts, the ratio between the contact hours and independent hours is about 35% to 65%. All right, so the ratio based on that result, 55% is a contact hours and 65% is independent work. So basically, what we can learn from here is actually the students required more, self-learning or self-efforts as compared to what has been put as a contact hours with the teachers. And when we do survey, I'm going to share a little bit more about the survey later on. The result, then the result is from the medicine group examples. All right, so I will share afterward. But what we do actually, we do a survey to the students and the academic as well. So let them estimate based on certain items related to their learning activities, and then they make estimations based on their experience. All right, and then logbook, focus group also, we are exploring those workload in detail, because when we do logbook and go for the focus group, we can explore more about the student real experience dealing with the workload that they have faced. Now, there's something that from the medicine group, it's not teacher education or civil engineering. You can clearly see that, and let me just show you the laser pointer. You can see clearly that this is academic. I mean that from the desk, from the survey, what the academic and student perceive, we can see that consistently, we can see that the academics estimated lower student workload as compared to the students' estimation consistently. And if you're looking at the desk, also looking at, um, the desk estimation and the academic estimation is a bit far, but compared to the student, it's more or less, sometimes lower, sometimes higher. But the most important lesson that we learn from here, whatever we estimate as a teacher is not what the student really on the ground. All right, so this is something that we learn clearly across the ASEAN institutions, but except for the teacher education. Teacher education is a bit very interesting, the result, because the academics in the teacher education estimated higher student workload than the student estimation. So it's something special about teacher education, but for the civil and for the medicine, it's more or less same pattern, right? And then when we go deep dive or we explore what the factors actually contributing to the student workload in this, in this research. So basically, there are six, and across the members. One is the types of learning activities. There are certain learning activities which is a little bit more complicated. For example, in medicine, there's a clinical related skill. So outcomes, clinical learning outcomes. So the learning activities looks required extra more times as compared to the non-clinical, non-clinical learning activities. So this is something that we need to recognize that different learning activities will impose different workload to the students. So we need to be careful with that when we are designing our curriculum. And then the second one is about level of guidance provided by lecturers. I think it's quite interesting because from the data we know, we get that actually those who are properly guided by the teachers actually will spend less time as compared to those who are not guided. Right? So I think that's quite there's a quite logical, because when you guide the students, will focus and then know what to do in the certain amount of time. But if let's say they are not guided, so you mean that they have to explore on their own, definitely times for learners will be higher compared to the guided one. The third one is about the level of prior knowledge. That's why it's always good if you can give a prior learning before come to the lesson, because the level of prior knowledge and experience does influence student workloads significantly. The course design, structure, and level, that's very important as well. If let's say the course has been designed appropriately according to the time as well as the allocated time, even for the independent time, that will facilitate better student workload proportions. Learning strategies that students use and ability to manage time. I think the ability to manage time is very important, because sometimes even though the same topic, the same lesson, different students have a different ability to manage time, therefore they influence the student workload perceived by the students compared to the actual student workload that they need to spend for the competent students. And there are a few enablers for the student workload measurement practices that we encounter. Is one is a faculty training that's required for us how to properly visualize the concept of student workload and how we can implement it into our curriculum. The student involvement, that is very important to get feedback from them. Institutional support to empower those, and then technology infusion, because if we use technology, we can see the real-time student workload that will motivate students, or maybe can inform the teachers how well the students spend their time accordingly, right? But the challenges is that consistently mentioned across the ASEAN when they are trying to implement all this student workload concept is resistant. I think that's quite common, because if something is new, being introduced, definitely the resistance will there. So managing resistance to ensure the culture of student workload be implemented properly is important. And practicality of the tools that we use. the planning about that, and then the commitment of the teachers to to implement or to somehow embrace the student workloads culture is something that it's a bit challenging for many of our institutions involved in CALOHEA. And the key message here is what we have learned from the CALOHEA is students spend more time than the allocated time. Actually, if you allocated times 30 hours, maybe they need 40 hours. So it is something that we need to consider. And then the significance of measuring student work for effective curriculum planning. Yes, definitely. If we want to plan our curriculum properly, we need to make sure that the student will be being put properly. And then the importance of considering student perspective in the process of workload measurement. I think it's very important to get student feedback. And then, across the ASEAN country, they have shared that there is mandatory documentation of student workload for recognition and internalization. So at the end, before I finish, just to visualize everything, the contact hour student workloads come to end, we will breach the transparency of our degree, and hopefully with a comparable, compatible student workload in terms of the credit across, hopefully across the ASEAN, will promote greater recognition, the cross recognition between the countries, and then hopefully this will further enhance the potentials to be more internationalized degree as compared to before. So the installment of culture of student workload measurement as an integral part of curriculum design is really, really essential. All right. So I think that's from my side. Thank you so much. And then I think we can discuss, maybe let's discuss after the Masura presentation so that we can see the whole picture and then we can have a Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Saiful. Should I just immediately start now? Okay, let me share my screen first. So is it in the presenter's view now?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So, okay, without further delay, we have about another 30 minutes. Probably my part will be only 20 minutes. I think I'll try my best. So, for my part, what I will talk about is on the reflect on the culture of student workload measurement as an integral part of curriculum design. So, Dr. Saiful already introduced to all of you on the concept of workload, and especially the tools that we already use for this project. But for my part, what I will share is that the result or the output from the tools that we already conducted together with our students. I think it was about 2 years project for to complete this part. So before I go further, I would just like to share a little bit, because just now Dr. Saiful show for the whole three subject area group, or SAG we call it in CALOHEA. But specifically for civil engineering subject area group, we have about 14 institutions from around Southeast Asia. And we also have experts from the EU and also support from the ASEAN University Network. So this was actually the current final meeting that we have, the general meeting, which was held in December last year. And the reason why this project that we conduct, especially with regards to the student workload as a measurement, is that we want to have a balanced learning experience. Okay, especially with the curriculum that offers a balanced mix of academic rigor and also students' well-being. And we would also want to prevent overburdening students while maintaining our standards, especially our program standards. And definitely we want to ensure the student success by optimizing our student success from the balance of learning measurement, and also support students in reaching their full potential. As mentioned by Dr. Saiful previously, in order for us to be recognized, of course, there are many processes, and in the terms of student workload measurements, there are three items that we actually take into consideration. The first thing is the processes. The second things are the tools, which I'm going to explain further here, and of course, we also take into consideration of our stakeholders. Uh, Especially for CALOHEA projects, there were two main stakeholders that we take into consideration, which are our students and also our academics, our lecturers. So in order for us to complete this task, to measure student workload, there were several engagement with different stakeholders using different tools to measure the student workload. And in this process, the first thing that we do is we need to collect the data. Some of the data are already available, and some are new data that we collected during this process. And of course, we have to identify the suitable tools and formats. And fortunately, based on this project, we will introduce to use 4 different tools in order for us to measure the student workloads. And after that, of course, we have to discuss about the data that we found based on the measurement. And at the end of the day, we are able to reflect on this exercise on how to enhance our curricula. And at the end of the day, what we want is that we want to contribute to an ASEAN level discussion in order to promote the use of student workload as a basis for a more coherent regional recognition system. Okay, and especially when it comes to credit transfers. Okay, the next part, I will go into the protocols for monitoring student workload. As I've already mentioned, and Dr. Saiful already mentioned, there are 4 tools that we use. Okay, so the first tool is actually the desk estimation, and the desk estimation was actually conducted during a certain period that we already selected in 2022. And in this case, basically what we want is that we want to understand the students' learning time in class and outside class for the whole entire academic program, not specifically for a certain semester. And we use one academic program, which is in our situation, we definitely choose our bachelor degree in civil engineering. And we need to also identify the person in charge that hold all of this data. And to do that, we need to do the desk estimation. And the desk estimation was actually completed based on the available documents and information for the program. And at this point, it is basically minimal engagement with academician and students. So that is our during the tool one measurement, which is the desk estimation. And for that, we come up with the summary of all our courses based on the semesters and also the years. And we define all of the student learning time based on the guided learning and self-learning, and also the assessment part. This is basically can be taken from our course information form, which is in USM, we call it as BPK, and also from our teaching plan. Okay, so we conducted this desk estimation for the whole 4 years academic program. And we found out that based on the first tool, okay, there are several, how to say, differences in terms of SLT, definitely because of the credit that is taken by the students. Okay, so we can see here the range from year 1 to year 4, from 765 SLT to 1364, 1325, and also 768 during the final year of the study. Okay, so that is the tool number 1. The next, I will share a little bit on the other three tools. Okay, the other three tools are basically the tools that we conducted with the engagement with the academics and also our students. So there were three tools. The first one is the end of semester questionnaire. Sorry, this is tool number 2. Tool number 3 is the diary and logbook. And tool number 4 is the focus group discussion. Okay, let me show you a little bit of the output from each of these tools. So for tool number 2, end of semester questionnaire. So this was actually conducted until March 2022, and basically we use a specific questionnaire form, okay, whereby we take into consideration the answers from the students as well as also the academics. Okay, so in this tool number 2, what we did is that we contacted the lecturers who taught the courses based on the selected semester, and we also select at least 10 minimum students that already passed the course at the in the chosen semester. Okay. And in our program, basically, we selected semester 6, which is the second semester of the year study of our Bachelor of Civil Engineering program. And there were about a total of 30 students that we selected, and 13 academics or 13 lecturers were engaged throughout this two phase. And this was conducted between July 2022 to September 2022. And these are the courses that we decided to consider in using the tools to estimation. Okay, basically we have about 6 core courses and 6 elective courses, and there is actually in that semester there is also 1 university requirement, but there is how to say selected courses that actually the student answers more, okay, but of course they need to answer in terms of the hours they need to do or complete in order for them to be able to get the credits for these courses. Okay, so this is an example of the tool to estimation. One is actually this is actually the questionnaire template for the lecturers. Okay, so similarly, almost similarly, we also have the questionnaire template for our students. Particularly for question number 7 and number 8, you can see that we directly ask the students like how many hours that they need to spend in the semester to complete the requirements of this course. Okay, which also taking into account the contact hours and also the independent work. And in question number 8, we also asked them how many hours per week did you spend for both contact hours and independent work to complete all the requirements for this course. So before they were given this questionnaire template, we had a session with them to inform of them why do we do these activities, and then what do we expect out of this activity. And of course, based on the respondents, we have like the how to say the details of respondents before the data screening. Basically, we have all of the information that were collected from all of the students that were already selected. And on the left side is actually before the data screening, and we try to eliminate the how to say several outliers that we already identified that is how to say inconsistent with the majority of the result from the questionnaire. And at the end, what we get is that we get the output from at least 8 courses that is very clear after the data screening. And just a little bit, I just extracted a little bit on the result. So we have the result for the mean of student workload for each of the course calculated from the 2 questions that I highlighted, question number 7 and question number 8. And at the end, we see that the total student workload solely for this semester, which is semester 6, the student says for the whole semester, they need to spend about 735.4 hours and weekly about 55.9 hours. And the academic says that the students need to spend about 696 hours for the whole semester and weekly about 49 hours. This is consistent to what Dr. Saiful mentioned, whereby the perception is that we as an academics will always see that the students require lesser, but the students will perceive it as they need more time in order for them to complete the semester. That is for tool number 2. And for tool number 3, this is on diary and logbook. Okay. So there are several steps that we need to consider when we do tool number 3. So the first step, probably go a little bit on this. So we identify the students. The students will need to fill up the diary, okay? And then the academics also, the lecturer also will need to give their estimation based on the diary. And the diary includes the learning part and also the activity part that must be completed by the students, okay? And then before that, definitely we have like a session that we explain to the students. And in step 3, basically we analyze the information that we already collected, and we also share the result backs with the student, and we make some reflection of the result. Okay. And this is the example of a workload estimation. So we selected, I think about courses that we do this. Basically, what they do is that the students fill up the diary logbook throughout the semester from week 1 until week 14. Okay. And in this case, you can see on the left side, we choose one particular semester, and then we choose 2 courses, as I mentioned. So and in this case, sorry, it's not for the we monitor for the 14 weeks, but for the logbook we only fill up in detail for 3 weeks. Okay. So inside that 3 weeks, we agree that the workload must also include least one assessment. So at least one assessment must be within that 3 weeks where they detail out all of the workload that they have to do. Okay, so the right side in table 2 here that you can see is actually an example of the workload estimation based on the logbook. And at the end, we definitely have several reflections. Okay, so it's mentioned here that it is definitely quite difficult for lecturers to make right initial assumptions. Okay, of the time that the students need to be able to complete a certain task, because there are many factors that we need to consider. And usually it is lecturer can make better estimation when we already receive a feedback from the students periodically. Then we can actually use that information to design the future tasks that we want to decide for our students. Okay. And during the discussion with the students, during this reflection, students are very welcome on the idea of this diary and logbook, so that they understand like how much they need to spend for each of the tasks that is required for them to complete the course. Okay. But they say that it is quite difficult to estimate the tasks such as revision, because some part, maybe some topic, they will take lesser time for them to revise, probably because they already understand that specific topic. But on the other part, at some point, probably they need to take a longer time if they don't understand that specific topic. So the final tools that we conducted, which is tool number 4, is the focus group discussion. So in this tool number 4 activities, we selected a specific team that actually help us to identify the suitable participant, and we carry out the discussion based on the guide of questions that is given by the CALOHEA project. And after that, we analyze the workload and we make the reflection of the result. And this was actually conducted last year in May. So we conducted this for, I think, one whole afternoon with the students, and there are several questions, as you can see on the right side. Okay, so we asked the students, and then they also like to say need to discuss with their peers whether they agree on that value or not. And this is an little bit of findings. Okay, you can see that there is actually about 10 students. We selected about 10 students, okay, the final year students, okay, who already registered for that particular semester, 20 credits. And then that is their CGPA, which is within the range between 3.04 to 3.94. And they already produce, they come out with the number of hours that they think that they need to do in order for them to complete the courses. So uh, uh, basically the findings that we found that is that all the students responded that all subjects did not have the same proportion of workload between independent work and contact hours in semester 7, because in semester 7 for our program we have this integrated design project course whereby it is more say geared towards self or independent learning and independent works for them to be able to complete the course. Okay, so at the end, what students say is that they have to spend about 35% to the 60% of the total time on independent work for this course. Okay, this course currently we have about 4 credits for them to take. So they said that they have to like use most of their time to complete most of their time to complete this course. So, based on the 4 tools that we conducted, it seems that the tool number 4 gives very close estimation based on the desktop assessment estimation. So, a little bit on summary on the 4 tools that we conducted in our program. Okay, tool number 1, I already mentioned the hours that we found based on the desk estimation. Tool number 2 is actually the end of semester questionnaire. The student says that they need 735.4 hours in one semester, but the academic says that they only require 696 hours. Tool number 3, diary and logbook. Student says they need about 4.73 hours per week for course number 1 and about 5.27 hours per week for course number 2. I will show in summary for as the whole semester unit. And also tool number 4, they require about 42.5 hours per week. So when we sum up all of the 4 tools that we conducted, we can see that the range is between 35 to 46 hours per semester per unit. In average, we got about 40.125 hours per semester per unit for the students to complete. And this is actually similar to 1 credit that is defined by the Malaysian Qualification Framework, which is equivalent to 40 hours of notional student learning time. And in our subject area group, from the 14 institutions that I've shown earlier in the earlier image, we actually come up with the summary of workload estimation for 14 institutions. I will say that most university, I think more than 50% out of the 14 institutions, I do not show it here. So I close the institution name, but about 50% agrees that logbook diary and also the focus group discussion are 2 of the best tools that we can use in order for us to estimate student workload. So at the end, maybe I would like to also say my appreciation to our team. This is the CALOHEA Civil Engineering team from University of Science Malaysia. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Saiful. That's from me.
All right, thank you. I think we still have time, about 7 minutes before 4:30. If anyone have any questions, you can type down, or maybe you can verbally ask. Are they allowed to speak, Sarah?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, they can speak, isn't it? So you can speak, just unmute, and then you can verbally say your, mention your question. All right, so the first question is, may we add evaluations in student workload? You like to say something, Masura?
Maybe Dr. Saiful dulu. Dr. Saiful can start first, then I
All
can
right,
continue.
so I think in terms of evaluations in student workload, I do not really grasp what the meaning, but I believe that if you want to put a CQI in this, in terms of the evaluation in student workload, I think that will be better because we can monitor and we can see how that student workload represent the real load of the students. I think that will be very, very good idea to put evaluation within the student workload monitoring process because we can learn from that. I hope that answer, or maybe you have something else, Dr. Mas.
For me also, I'm not so clear about the question, like how do we evaluation in student workload? Is it how to say the evaluation from the perspective of the students or the evaluation of the student workload itself? So
Hmm.
maybe if the how to say Dr. Sajid can ask further in the chat box. Maybe if we go to the second question first,
All
the
right.
second one. Uh, Dr. Nur Ashrina is asking about how can we assess the SLT from logbook, especially for IDP. So the inside the logbook, actually it requires specific activities that they need to complete for that particular week. So for example, if let's say during that week they are required to write down the proposal of the design, specifically for a certain components of the design, and they need to like fill up like how many hours they need to how to say, not clock in, but they need to do in order for that to complete that specific task. So if let's say that particular week they are required to attend a specific lecture or specific talk with regards to the design itself, so meaning that they will have like 1 or 2 contact hours with the lecturer, and then after that they will also maybe require 2 more hours for them to do their own learning time. Yeah, so they have to write the time that they have to use. Mhm.
But I think that's applicable to teacher education and medicine as well. Yeah, they have to write the time they use or spend to complete the task. Any other questions? All right. Interesting directions of the project. We consider student ability or quality when we assess the workload input given by the student. Yes, I think not just to share. Actually, when we estimate, basically we estimate our average student. All right. So basically, in the tools, basically they mention about average students. So definitely they are trying to to cater the ability differences. So that's why there's mention based on the average student. But no, if you are looking at the reality, yeah, those are very very good student require less time as compared to a very not so called poor but not how to put a weak student. Yeah, weak student better. I think weak student they require more time, and I think from our own experience we can see this kind of students. The very good student, the average students, and the weak student. Definitely, they have a different, not different level of ability of learning, and then in fact the way they grasp certain subjects also different because they have a different talent basically the aptitude will be different. I think, yeah, uh, definitely that's very important to consider. Would you like to say something?
If I may add a little bit, because our finding for tools number 3 and tools number 4, the students were selected, but tools number 2, which is the questionnaire for end of the semester questionnaire, we conducted for the whole class, and we can see that the range of the time is very, how to say, it varies. For example, tools number 2, the output was actually the SLT that is required is about between, let me open back my slide, between 40 to 46 hours. So for 1 credits. So it can be said that the result varies. If you have, how to say, more good students, then probably your, how to say, your SLT will be skewed near to what is expected by the lecturers. But if you have like average or less average students, then probably you will have bigger value of the SLT. Do you agree with that also, Dr. Saiful? I think
Yes.
that was what our finding in civil.
Yeah, that's why when we were doing this research, we were thinking about we need to get good students. So, for example, like medicine, we need to have the best of the best, basically, because the topic is complicated, and the level of ability to learn the difficult concept should be at certain reasonable level. Otherwise, whatever the time we give to the student will never be enough for the weak student. So I think there is an implication for the student selection as well. The student admission is depending on the complexity of the course. We need to ensure that the student will be able to cope up with the student workload that has been at least reasonable student workload for that particular course, so that the student won't be struggling a lot, during the course. I think it is something that if it's a kind of extrapolation from our workload to admission, but reflecting back on the student ability and how they perceive the workload, yeah, definitely have a significant contribution. Yeah, any last questions? We over time 1 minute, but we don't mind to take one more question if there is any. Yes, I think that's the goal of this project. One is to make the any authorities aware about the concept of student workload, and then hopefully with the awareness that we try to disseminate through this project, they will realize, oh, okay, we need to consider different dimension of student workload. And just to share with you, because we involved with many countries, the level of embracement about the student workload into the curriculum design are totally different, isn't it, Mas? So, we can see the differences. Those of countries that already considered the student workload from both perspectives, from the academic as well as from student perspective, we can see the level is a bit different. But in the country that has not yet been embraced in terms of the student workload concept, they are still with the conventional framework. We can see that the load of the students basically somehow beyond than what is supposed to be. I think this is something that we learn from other countries that we might want to consider if, let's say, what else we can do better to ensure that the workload is reasonable for the students. And the most important is to promote the well-being of the student through a proper workload estimation. So we are being fair to the students, and hopefully, as I put in my graph, the time and competency, the time is good enough for them to grow the competency that we expected from them. I think this is something that, yes.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Saiful. And as part of the how to say, curriculum development, this activity is also very good in order for us to revise whether, for example, the credit that we set for a specific course with the workload that the students need to complete, is it, how to say, fair, and is it, how to say, sufficient, that the students can achieve within the time frame of this one semester. So when we do this, in a way, we can also how to say, estimate the load that the students need to do in order for them to complete, and definitely we need to find balance in that. So I think that from our experience, joining this project is actually very good experience, and to say, learning curve for all three SAGs. I think so, right, Dr. Saiful?
Yes,
That
yes.
we learn a lot in this. Yeah.
Mm. All right. I think there is already almost 5 minutes beyond the time. So maybe I pass over back to Sarah.
Okay,
All
Dr.
right.
Thank you, Doctor. So, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organizing committee, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to our esteemed speakers, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Saiful Bahri Yusof and TS Dr. Mastur Azmi, for their invaluable insight and expertise shared with us. Your passion for advancing higher education in the ASEAN region is truly commendable. To all our attendees, thank you for your active participation and engagement throughout this session. In closing, let's make a lasting impact on higher education in the ASEAN region. Before we dismiss, please scan or click on the link given, fill up the e-survey and clarify your attendance to ensure your CPD point. Until we meet again, so thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Doctor.
Take care.